Hi, everybody, it's Julie, and I know it's been a hot minute since I last did a Hello Monday video, but I'm back today. I'm going to be making a felt ornament. I'm going to be working with the 12 Days of Christmas holiday dies that were released in the latest Essentials by Ellen release. And I'm going to be die cutting coordinating colors of felt, working with some coordinating colors of embroidery floss. Whenever I die cut through felt, and if I need to cut multiples, I'll usually fold it over on itself and cut two at the same time. I'm also going to be cutting the same shape once out of some very lightweight chipboard. And what's going to happen with this is it's going to get sandwiched in between these two layers. Now, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to trim around the edges. And one of the reasons why I'm trimming is that I need to have that, what do you call it, a seam allowance there along the outer edges of my felt so that my needle can get through. And I'm not trying to send my needle through this lightweight chipboard because I'll bust the needle. Now, you don't have to add this layer of chipboard in between. You can just use double layers of felt, your front and your back, and then whatever you decide to applique onto the front. So I'm using the hand stitching applique method. I'm not going to be using any type of like sheet adhesive. Now, if you were working with kids and you wanted to avoid, needles, sharp, pointy things, then you might go with the stick it sheets or I can't remember what it's called, but it's that adhesive sheets, peel and stick. I think maybe that's what they're called. But anyway, those work really great on felt, and especially if you're working with kids, it works awesome. But I'm going to be hand stitching everything on this ornament, and I'm going to secure the wing to the body of the partridge first. So I went down through the layers or I actually came up through the layers so that my knot would be concealed on the back side of the partridge. So I came up through the layers of felt, and then I'm going to go back down, and I'm just stitching very tiny stitches very close to the edge. Now, you could do blanket stitches if you want, but I decided to just do a simple like a whip stitch, straight stitch, and they're super, super tiny. And I'm using only one ply of that. Is that what it's called? Ply? Most embroidery floss, they have 6 strands, right? And they're all, twisted together. So I separated mine to use just one strand of that embroidery floss. And then I used a very tiny needle with a very tiny eye. So now I'm going to stitch the partridge to the top layer of felt, doing the same thing. And this time I'm just using a color of embroidery floss that matches, but I did separate it to it was just one ply. And with those tiny little stitches so tight and close together, you almost can't even see them. So now that I've got those together, I'm going to go ahead and stitch with the chipboard in between the 2 layers of the pears. And I'm going to come up through the back side of the front layer so that my knot can be concealed in between those 2 layers of felt. And I'm going to use the exact same stitch. Like I said, I could use a blanket stitch. It would be more decorative, but also it would take me a lot longer. And if I want to make a whole collection of these in time for, to put on my tree, I'm going to need to do this as fast as possible. The one good thing about it is I really love to hand stitch. I'm not an experienced sewer. I'm not even a skilled embroiderist, none of that. But I do find it very therapeutic to just do these very simple stitches. It's probably the repetitiveness of it. Anyway, when I'm done and I get all the way to the end, I tied my knot off and hid that inside between the 2 layers of felt. And then I'm going to take these leaves and stitch them together. Now, instead of going around the outer edges of the leaf with a straight stitch like I did on the other layers, I'm just going to do a back stitch down the center of this leaf to kind of give it that decorative veining effect. And it's really hard for me to explain in words how to do a back stitch. But if you watch what I'm doing and if you Google how to do a back stitch, there's so many tutorials on there that explain it. It's super easy. That's why I did it. And it gives a really nice finished effect. If you did a running stitch, then you'd have a gap between the stitches. And I decided, no, let's do it this way. So neither way is correct. It's just a matter of personal preference. So I started towards the corner. I didn't go all the way down to the very tip of that corner, but I started towards, a little bit of ways from the corner end there. And there's a reason for that because of the way I wanted to attach this to the top of my pear. So I'm really glad there's no stem to have to contend with because that would be a super teeny tiny detail to try to attach to the pear. It's like, no, I'm not going there. So when I get to the very end of the leaf, I'm going to thread my needle so that it comes out between the two leaves. And then I'm going to, leaves. And then I'm just going to tie a very simple knot right there. And then conceal that between the two layers. And I'm not going to disconnect my thread here. I'm not going to cut my thread off just yet because now I'm going to need to tighten. I'm going to need to attach this leaf to the top of my pear. So that gap there is allowing me to place one side of the leaf, on the back side of the pear and the other on the front. Now you don't have to do it this way. This is just kind of what I was going for. So that's how I did it. So I'm going to take that thread because I haven't cut it. It's still attached. I'm going to run through both layers of those felts. So I'm trying to avoid catching the chipboard with my needle so I don't bust my needle. And I'm just kind of scooching it up through both layers of the felt, the pear and that leaf on the backside. And this is kind of just a tacking stitch that I'm doing. So I'm just kind of going over a couple times in that same spot to make sure that I have it tacked securely. And then I'll send my needle through to the other side and do it on the front side. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just whatever works for you in making, in securing it, stitching it securely, and then concealing your knots. Because like I said, I did not want to use any glue or, those self-adhesive peel and stick sheets. I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to stitch everything because I feel like it. So it's your ornament, do whatever floats your boat. If I were working with kids and I wanted to avoid the needles, I would use that peel and stick stuff because that's just great when you're working with kids. But yeah, I would never want my granddaughter, even at age 7, to try to do this with a needle because I know she'd probably end up poking herself quite a bit. And then she wouldn't love Nana no more. She'd be like, why are you torturing me, Nana? So, yeah. Now I'm just going to finish off this stitch here on the back. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to send my needle back through so that I'm coming out. My thread is coming out from between the layers of felt. And then I can go ahead and just like I did before, I'm going to tie a knot and I will be able to conceal it in between those two layers of felt. So once that's done, I'll cut off the excess and move on to attaching a hanger. And there are different ways you can attach a hanger. I decided that I wanted to use cord. Now you could use ribbon and just tack some ribbon to the backside. You could hot glue some ribbon on there. But me being, I'm stitching every piece of this together. So I went through my very limited sewing supplies and found that I had a needle with a bigger eye that I could actually thread this gold metallic cord or string. It's by May Arts and it's got a little bit of heft to it. And I'm just going to catch the backside of that felt and have my needle go between the felt and the chipboard that's been encased inside. And that's going to allow me to just send that through. There's no way I could get that through all those layers at one time. So I'm just catching the back here. And then I'm going to even out the ends and just tie a very simple knot. Now my ends were starting to get frayed from when I sent it through the needle or the eye of the needle. So I trimmed off the fraying edges so that my cord looks nice and neat. And there you can see just how cute that looks. And I love how that chipboard inside just helps it keep its form. And it just looks so sweet. And I can't wait to do the whole collection and have them on my tree. I think they turned out so fun. And gosh, I hope it inspires you to make your own felt ornaments. Thanks for watching.